So in this lecture, I'd like to take a look at customizing the ZBrush interface. There's several things you can do to make the ZBrush interface more applicable to your specific preferences in your workflow. For example, I have a System Palette button, which I like to dock down here in the interface. I also like to remove the Quick Sketch button, and I have a preference for my background color in my document window. So in this lecture, I'm going to show you how I customize the interface, and you can set up the same customizations or any that you find later on as you're working through ZBrush, which would make your workflow a lot smoother inside the program. So to begin, if we're going to customize the interface, we need to go to the Preferences menu. Under Preferences, we'll open up Config, and then we're going to turn on Enable Customize. Now you'll notice it creates a little separation here between the menu bar and the rest of the interface. That's just a visual cue to let you know that you're in interface customization mode. The first thing that I want to do is I want to take this Quick Sketch button and remove it from the interface. I usually accidentally hit that when I'm going for the light box, and I find it inconvenient. So to move a button around, I will Control, Shift, click and drag, Control, Alt, click and drag that button. So it's Control, Alt, click and drag. Now if I were to place this elsewhere in the interface, you see that it'll light up anywhere that I wanted to place this. So if I wanted to dock this button over here or here or here, I could do that. See, I let go, that button is now over here. I don't want to place it elsewhere in the interface though, I actually want to remove it. So I will Control, Alt, click and drag, and instead of dropping it somewhere in the interface, I will drop it on the document window, and that button now disappears. So I have now effectively removed the Quick Sketch button. So let's say we want to add something to the interface. I'm going to go up here to the Color menu. In the Color menu, there is the System Palette button. I like to use the System Palette when I'm selecting colors during a painting. So what I want to do is I want to take this button, System Palette, and I want to drop it down here on the sidebar on the left so I can access it quickly along with Switch Color and this color picker here. So to do that, I'll go up here to the menu, I will hold down Control, Alt, and then I will click and drag the System Palette button. And again, anywhere that I can dock it, it will sort of snap and light up. So I'm going to drop it right here. There we go. So the System Palette button is now located here in the interface. So once I've completed my interface customizations, I will go to Preferences and I will turn off Enable Customize. And you see that that gap now disappears. Now if I want these customizations to remain for the next time I open ZBrush, I need to go to Preferences and click Store Config. Now that stores it in the master configuration file, which is inside the Z Startup folder on your hard drive. So that has now been stored. Every time I start ZBrush, this button will be removed from the interface and this will be added. Now, let's say we want to do some hotkeys. So when I'm sculpting, I'll often use the B menu to bring up the brush menu. And if I want the move brush, I'll do M for move and then V for the move brush. If I want the standard brush, I'll do B for brush, S for standard, and then I will select the standard brush with the letter T. So this is a very quick way of navigating through the brush menu. However, I like having hotkeys for my favorite 5 brushes. I believe that just like painters and sculptors, ZBrush artists have access to hundreds of different brushes, but generally we have about 5 or 6 that we constantly use. For me, if you watch here, I'll scroll through them using my hotkeys. It is the brush Move, Standard, Inflate, Clay Tubes, and then Dam Standard. Those are my favorite brushes. So I have those set to hotkeys, the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So as I'm working, I can press those buttons and pull up my favorite brushes. It's much faster than going through this menu here, because I just know that I want those particular brushes. And then if I decide that I need something else, like curved tubes, for example, I'll do B for brush, C for curve, and then there is the curved tube brush there, the letter W. So I'll pick specialty brushes like that as I need them, but generally my 5 favorites I will use these hotkeys for. So how do we set up a hotkey? Hotkeys are really simple. Basically, any button or slider in the interface that you want to hotkey, all you need to do is hover over it and then Control, Alt, click. And you see now at the top of the screen it says press any key combination to assign a custom hotkey. So that means if I were to press, let's say, Alt P, that is now assigned Alt P to the System Palette. So if I press Alt P now, you see it brings up the System Palette. So it's very, very convenient to be able to hotkey anything in your interface that you find yourself using constantly. It will speed you up and help you get more confident and more efficient in the program. So, how do we set up hotkeys for brushes? The easiest way to do this is to take the brush menu, tear it off, and dock it on the right-hand side of the screen. Again, that's done by just clicking this little radio button here, and it will dock over on the side of the screen. Now this button here, this is not a brush. This is your brush palette. So don't try and hotkey this button. You're just going to hotkey your brush palette. These smaller icons here are the brushes that you have recently opened. So here you can see the standard brush, there is the dam standard, the move brush, the inflate brush. These are the ones that I'm going to hotkey. So what I will do is I'll press Control Alt and then I will click on the move brush and then press the number 1. And the hotkey was already assigned, so you notice at the top of the screen it tells me that. But in your case, it will just assign the hotkey. I will Control Alt click on standard and then assign that the number 2. Control Alt click on inflate, assign that to number 3. Control Alt click on clay tubes, give that number 4, and then I will Control Alt click on dam standard and give that number 5. Now if there's another brush that I want to hotkey that I don't see here, I'll just go into my main brush menu here. Let's say, for example, I want to hotkey the Stitch Basic brush. If I select that one there, I will Control Alt click on it, and then I can assign that, for example, to the number 6. So now I have assigned those hotkeys. Now we need to store them, because these hotkeys are only going to be valid for this session of ZBrush. If I want them to be valid every time I open the program, I need to go to Preferences, Hotkeys, and then click Store, and that will save your hotkeys. Click OK, and there we go. So now I have hotkeyed all of my favorite brushes, and I've also hotkeyed the system palette. And those hotkeys will be there every time I start ZBrush. So now the last thing that I want to customize is my document window. Here we can see the document window is this nice dark gray. It's pretty good resolution, but I want to actually increase the resolution of my document window, and I want to change my background color. So the way I will do that is I will go to the document window, and I'm going to double size it. So I'm going to click double. It says it's not undoable. I'll just say yes. Now when I double size the document, it drops an image of whatever was on the document to it. Just click Control N and that will clear the canvas. So now I've got a much higher resolution workspace. Now this is particularly useful if you're working on a very large monitor. Sometimes people find they get a lot of blank space here between their document window and the edge of the interface. So oftentimes they will increase their document resolution and make that their startup document. So every time ZBrush starts, their workspace fills the screen. Now, if you're working on an extremely dense model, sometimes having too large of a document size can slow ZBrush down. So if you're ever working on something with several million polygons on several different subtools, and it's giving you some hard time with feedback, if it's slowing down as you're rotating, you might try lowering your document resolution. That is a rare instance, but if you find yourself in that situation where it's just ZBrush seems to be struggling, your system is struggling, you might dial back your document resolution. I've only seen that in very extreme cases, but I did want to bring that up. So now, with a double-sized document, much higher resolution, let's say we want to change the background color. We will go to Document, and here we've got the document background color. So it's set to white now because that was my currently selected color. If I set this to about a 50% gray, go to Document, and then click Back, that gives me a nice light gray background. So let's say I want to save this document now, so every time I start ZBrush it looks like that. What I will do is I'll come down here and I will click Save as Startup Doc. And what that will do is it will save a startup document based on this workspace. So every time we start ZBrush, it will look the same. It'll look exactly like you see it now. So that is ZBrush interface customization. Those are the tools that you need to go in and customize this interface any way that you want. And you can actually get really specific and go in and make some major changes to the ZBrush interface, as you'll see if you just scroll through some of the interface layouts that are available to you here. If you want to change things like the color, you can come in here and change your UI settings. If you go to Custom UI, go to iColors. There's the interface colors, pop-up opacity, icon shadow. All the different UI elements are completely customizable here. So there you have it. Hopefully you found this useful. We've got a general understanding now of ZBrush interface customization, and now we can move on to our next lecture.